God is not constrained to save by many or by few. And that's a very wise strategy in your heart. Number 8. Simeon saw his suffering as a wonderful privilege of bearing the cross with Christ. One time he was walking alone, desperately discouraged. He said he took out his Bible. He had one about this size. In fact, I've got a picture of him, like all these old guys. They sit with their hand like this, and get their picture taken, their finger in their book like this. Like if you see the Reformers at the Geneva Wall in Geneva, Switzerland. Is that the way he has his Bible right there? Okay. On the Geneva Wall in Switzerland, these 4 big Reformers, you can see them. They're like this with their finger in their Bible. That's no accident. When you have to pose a long time to get painted, you choose where your fingers are. And this is no accident. You've got your finger in the Bible. He went out, but he didn't have his finger in the Bible. It was shut. And he just said, I'm going to open my Bible. And he said, now I don't do this for guidance. I do it for support. And he said, it's okay to do this for support. And the verse that his eyes fell on? The calling of Simon to carry Jesus' cross, which is his own name, Simeon. And he said, what a word of instruction was here. What a blessed hint for my encouragement. To have the cross laid upon me, that I might bear it after Jesus. What a privilege. It was enough. Now I could leap and sing for joy as one whom Jesus was honoring with a participation of his sufferings. And the quote that I started with when he was 71 years old and Gurney asked him how he had endured, he said, my dear brother, we must not mind a little suffering for Christ's sake. Now those are the 8 traits. There are many more. Let me move once the traits to the root, and then the deepest root. The root beneath these traits was, you can call this number 9, massive doses of meditation and prayer. A friend of Simeon's named Hausman lived with him for a few months, and this is what he said. Simeon invariably arose every morning, though it was winter, at 4 o'clock, and after lighting his fire, he devoted the first 4 hours of the day to private prayer and the devotional study of the Scriptures. Here was the secret of his great grace and spiritual strength. Deriving instruction from such a source and seeking it with such diligence, he was comforted in all his trials and prepared for every duty. And that just makes tingles go up and down my spine. That you are so alone with God so much that whatever else is happening in the world, you and God will make it. That was not the basic root, however, because the basic root, which I turn to now in conclusion, number 10, is what he experienced when he went to the Word. And I'll sum it up like this. He grew downward in humiliation before God, and he grew upward in the adoration of Christ, year in and year out through his sufferings. He grew downward in humiliation. These are his words, grew downward. And he grew upward in adoration of Christ. And let me take the last minutes here on this. Moule captures, I think, the essence of his secret of longevity with these words. Before honor is humility, and he had been growing downward year by year under the stern discipline of difficulty met in the right way, the way of close, adoring communion with God. Now those two things, growing downward in humility and close communion and an adoration of God, are not separated in Simeon's life. And this is the remarkable thing, and this is what will stun some of you perhaps as you hear him talk about how he maintained his strength. Simeon was utterly unlike American Christianity in this regard. Utterly out of step with contemporary American evangelicalism, because he did not think it was helpful or appropriate to get rid of feelings of vileness or of unworthiness as soon as he could. For him, adoration grew in the freshly plowed soil of humiliation. Adoration grew best and tallest and strongest in the freshly plowed soil. Let me read something. I have continually had such a sense of my sinfulness as would sink me to utter despair if I had not an assured view of the sufficiency and willingness of Christ to save me to the uttermost. And at the same time, I had such a sense of my acceptance through Christ as would overset my little bark if I had not ballast at the bottom sufficient to sink a vessel of no ordinary size. Now, what does that mean? What that means is that he never, ever thought that we should throw the ballast of humiliation overboard. After he had been a Christian 40 years, listen to what he said, with this sweet hope of ultimate acceptance with God. Now mark those words, sweet hope of ultimate acceptance. I have always enjoyed much cheerfulness before men, but I have at the same time labored incessantly to cultivate the deepest humiliation before God. I have never thought, now here he is totally out of step with our day. I have never thought that the circumstance of God's having forgiven me was any reason why I should forgive myself. On the contrary, I have always judged it better to loathe myself the more in proportion as I was assured of God's being pacified towards me. Ezekiel 16:63. Therefore, there are but two objects that I have ever desired for these 40 years to behold. One is my own vileness, the other is the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. And I have always thought that they should be viewed together, just as Aaron confessed all the sins of Israel while he put them on the scapegoat. The disease did not keep him from applying to the remedy, nor did the remedy keep him from feeling the disease. By this I seek not only to be humbled and thankful, but to be humbled in thankfulness before my God and Savior continually. Now, if he's right, vast portions of contemporary Christianity are dead wrong. And I can't help but wonder whether one of the reasons we are emotionally capsized so easily today and are so vulnerable to criticism and opposition is that in the name of forgiveness and grace, we have thrown the ballast of our boats overboard. Simeon's boat drew a lot of water, but it was steady, on course. The mastheads were high and tall. I've seen these big sailing ships, and I've looked at them and said, good night, why doesn't that thing fall over? His mastheads were tall. His sails, full of the wind of the spirit of adoration, were broad. And all that steadiness was kept there by the ballast of brokenness, the ballast of contrition and humiliation before God, weighing the ship deep down into the water. And therefore, I think there is a correlation between the height of the mast and the breadth of the sail, on the one hand, and the weight of the ballast on the other. And contemporary evangelicalism batters home the message, throw it overboard, throw it overboard.